Evan lay on the hot sand, his mouth dry and cracked. The sun burned his skin, and his throat felt as if it was full of fire. The small shuttle he had been piloting was gone, broken beyond repair, and the emergency beacon had been smashed during the crash. He tried to sit up, but his arms shook, and he fell back with a soft thud. He had to move. He had to find water. He had to survive. The desert stretched endlessly before him. Jagged rocks jutted from the sand, and dust storms rose in the distance, like ghosts moving across the land. Every step was heavy, every breath painful. Evan tried to remember how long he had been walking. Hours, days, he could not tell. The heat blurred his thoughts, and the sun's glare made the rocks look like moving shadows. He stumbled toward a canyon he had spotted from the ridge. Maybe there would be a cave, maybe some shade, maybe something would save him. His legs felt weak, but he forced them to move. With each step, the sand burned his feet. His throat ached so badly that swallowing was impossible. He whispered to himself, "Just a little further. Just a little further." He stopped for a moment, gasping for breath. He sank to his knees, pressing his palms to the ground. The sand was hot beneath his fingers, and he could feel the heat climbing up his arms. His stomach growled faintly, reminding him he had not eaten in more than a day. Food mattered less than water, though. Without water, he would not survive the night. As he looked around, he noticed strange markings on the rocks near the canyon. Long scratches, deep and jagged, carved into the stone. He frowned. They did not look natural. He had no idea what had made them, but they were fresh, he thought. His chest tightened. He was weak, but he knew he had to keep moving. The canyon entrance was darker than the sand around it. The shadows promised relief from the sun, but they also brought fear. Evan hesitated at the edge, then took a deep breath and stepped inside. The air was cooler, and he felt some relief. The shadows wrapped around him like a soft blanket. He crouched low, his back to the wall, and tried to rest. He heard something move. A faint scraping sound from deeper in the canyon. Evan froze. His heart beat faster. He tried to listen, to catch the rhythm of the sound. It was not wind. It was deliberate. And it was close. He could feel eyes on him, though he could not see anything. He wanted to run, but his legs refused. He whispered, "I'm not food. I'm not food," to himself. The noise stopped, and the canyon was silent again. Evan dared to look forward. Faintly, he saw shapes moving in the shadows. Large shapes, tall and strong, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. He had never seen anything like them. His first thought was to scream, but he was too weak. His second thought was to pray that they ignored him. He backed slowly into a small alcove, trying to make himself small. His mind raced. If they attacked, he could not fight. He had no weapons, no strength. All he could do was hope. He could hear them moving closer, their footsteps echoing in the cavern. He closed his eyes, trying to stay calm. Then a voice spoke. Deep, harsh, but not loud. Human. Evan's eyes flew open. The voice came from the shadows, and he saw a tall figure step forward. It was reptilian, with scales that shone faintly in the low light. The eyes were sharp and intelligent. The voice came again. "You are weak. You have come far. Yet you survive." Evan could not speak. He was too thirsty, too tired, too afraid. He tried to nod, and the figure tilted its head, watching him. More shapes appeared behind the first, all tall, all strong, all watching him carefully. Evan realized he was surrounded. He had no escape. The first figure stepped closer. He could see the ridges on her face, the scars along her arms, and the way she carried herself. She was powerful. "Water is precious," she said, her voice like a hiss. "You have none. You need it. You cannot take it freely." Evan's throat burned, and he tried to speak. "Please. I need," he choked. The word water would not come out. She hissed softly, a sound like wind over rocks. "Water is earned," she said. "Serve, or we feast." He understood enough to know she meant he could either work for their tribe or die. His stomach turned, but he knew he had no choice. He nodded weakly, his body shaking. I will serve," he croaked. The warriors around her exchanged quiet sounds, low hisses and clicks, as if discussing his fate. She stepped back and motioned for him to follow. Evan tried to move, but his legs wobbled. One of the warriors behind her reached out, grabbing him by the arm. Their grip was strong, but not cruel. They guided him deeper into the cavern. The walls were lined with glowing stones that gave off a soft, green light. The air was cooler here, and Evan felt some relief from the scorching desert above. He stumbled over rocks and roots, and one of the warriors, a smaller female named Lenath, helped him. She did not speak, but her eyes showed curiosity. She had never seen a human before. They reached a wide chamber. The ceiling was high, and the walls carved with symbols that Evan could not understand. Several warriors stood in the center, looking at him. At the far end, the leader Karath stood tall. She gestured for him to kneel. Evan obeyed, his body trembling. Karath spoke again. "You are weak, yet you survive. We will test you. Only if you pass will you drink. Only if you pass will you live." Evan swallowed hard, trying to find the courage. His throat was dry, and his lips cracked. He nodded. "I understand," he said. The warriors surrounding him began to move. They showed him where he would sleep, a small nook in the cavern. They left food that was barely enough to sustain him, and the air smelled of minerals and damp stone. Evan sat down, too weak to eat or drink. He closed his eyes and tried to rest. The fear of the unknown weighed heavily on him, but he was alive. For now, he thought of the desert above, the sun, the burning sand, and the emptiness. He had expected to die there, and now he was inside this alien place, surrounded by beings stronger than anything he had ever imagined. He did not know if he would live through the night, but something inside him sparked. He could not give up. Not yet. As he drifted into a shallow sleep, he heard whispers, soft, clicking sounds in the dark, the voices of the warriors speaking in a language he did not understand. Yet one sound stood out, the hiss of Karath, repeating, "Serve, or we feast." It was both a warning and a challenge. Evan shivered, not from the cold, but from determination. He was dying of thirst. Yes, but he had found a haven. Perhaps this haven would save him, or perhaps it would kill him. Either way, he knew one thing. He would endure. He had survived this long, and he would fight to earn his place. When the night passed, he woke weak but alive. A small bowl of water was placed before him, just enough to wet his lips. He drank carefully, savoring each drop. It was not free. He had not earned it fully, yet it gave him hope. He felt a spark of life he had not felt in days. He could not give up. Karath appeared then, watching him silently. Her eyes were sharp, but not cruel. She waited for him to rise. Evan stood, wobbling, and looked at her. She nodded once. "Tomorrow, you begin your trial," she said. You will learn what it means to survive here. Only then will water be yours freely. Evan swallowed hard, looking around at the cavern, at the glowing stones, at the towering warriors. He did not know what the trial would be, but he knew one thing. He would not die thirsty. He would endure. He would learn. He would survive. And in that moment, despite the fear, he felt the first taste of hope in a long time. The desert world above was deadly. The warriors around him were fierce. But Evan was human, and humans endured. He would see the dawn, and when he did, he would rise stronger. The cavern was strange, alien, and dangerous. But it was life. And Evan was not ready to give up on life. Evan woke before dawn. The air in the cavern was cool and quiet. Outside, the desert was still, but he could hear faint winds moving through the canyon. He stretched stiff limbs and looked at the small bowl of water beside him. He drank slowly, savoring each drop, knowing he had not yet earned it fully. It was a taste of hope, not freedom. He stepped outside the nook where he slept and saw Karath waiting. Her scales glimmered faintly in the dim light, and her eyes were sharp and cold. Beside her stood Lenath, watching him silently. Evan swallowed hard, trying to steady his nerves. Karath spoke. Today, your trial begins. You will survive the grounds, find food, and prove your will. Only then will you earn water freely. Evan nodded. He was weak, but he would not show it. He had survived the desert. He could survive this. Karath motioned to a path leading into the deeper caverns. Follow, fail, and you will drink only what you are given. Evan followed, careful with each step. The ground was uneven, covered with roots and sharp rocks. The first test was simple in idea but cruel in practice. He was alone in a part of the cavern filled with tunnels, some narrow, some wide. There were small pools of water, but most were dry or poisoned. There was food scattered, but most of it required skill to reach or catch. Evan's stomach growled faintly, and his throat burned again, reminding him of the stakes. He moved carefully, watching shadows. He remembered the claw marks from the canyon outside. Predators might be here too. After a few steps, a sound made him freeze. A small creature, about the size of a large dog, lunged from behind a rock. It had sharp teeth and scales, moving with surprising speed. Evan jumped back, narrowly avoiding its bite. He realized he needed to think fast. He picked up a sturdy rock from the ground and swung. It hit the creature, stunning it. Evan ran, stumbling through the tunnels, heart pounding. He found a pool of water, shallow but clear. He bent down and looked inside. His reflection stared back, pale and exhausted. The water smelled faintly metallic. He knew Karath would notice if he drank it without permission. He resisted. Instead, he searched for a way to purify it. He found a small fire pit, used by the warriors, and heated some stones. He dropped them into the water, letting the heat kill any germs. The water was warm, but safe. He drank slowly, careful. Each swallow gave him strength, but he reminded himself it was not fully earned. As he moved deeper into the tunnels, Evan found more challenges. A narrow passage blocked by sharp stones forced him to crawl on his stomach. The walls scraped his arms and legs. He cut himself several times, but he did not stop. He remembered Karath's words. Water is earned. Serve, or we feast. The thought of dying thirsty drove him onward. He found food next. Strange tuber-like plants grew in clusters along the walls. Some were poisonous. He realized quickly, as the first one he tasted made his mouth burn. He spat it out and used his memory of colors and textures to find safer ones. He cooked a few over the small fire pit he had found, using stones to hold the tubers close to the heat. The food was bitter, but nourishing. His body needed it desperately. While eating, Evan heard the faint sound of footsteps echoing in the tunnels. He froze. The warriors were watching him. He knew they could appear at any moment to test him further. He ate quickly, then moved forward. The tunnels twisted and turned, and he began to lose track of time. The sun above the desert had moved, but he could not see it. All that mattered was surviving the labyrinth. He came across a narrow bridge over a deep chasm. Below, he could hear the faint growls of unseen creatures. The bridge was slick with moisture and algae. One misstep, and he would fall. Evan held his breath and stepped carefully, 1 foot at a time. The bridge shivered under his weight. Halfway across, a small piece of stone broke away. He stumbled, arms flailing, but caught himself. His heart pounded fiercely. He made it across, shaking, but alive. After the bridge, he entered a wider chamber filled with more pools of water. Some glowed faintly blue, and some were still. As he approached one, he saw movement. A creature, larger than him, with scales and claws, was drinking from the same pool. It turned toward him, hissing, ready to attack. Evan knew he could not fight it directly. He remembered the rocks he had used before and grabbed one. He threw it toward the far wall, creating a noise that distracted the creature. It turned away, giving Evan a chance to drink from the pool. He sipped carefully, gaining some relief, and then retreated into the shadows. Later, he encountered a Ravkari warrior observing him silently. It was Lenoth. She stepped out from the shadows. "You survive better than I expected," she said softly. Evan nodded. He tried to speak, but his throat was still sore. He managed. "I learn." Lenoth studied him for a moment. "You have spirit," she said. "Do not fail now." Then she vanished, leaving him alone again. The final challenge came in the form of a deep canyon within the cavern. Jagged rocks and sharp spikes blocked his path. He had to climb carefully, using his hands and feet. His muscles ached, but he could not stop. One slip, and he would fall into a pit below. He climbed slowly, counting each movement, feeling his strength return slightly with each success. At the top, he found another pool of water, larger and clearer than the others. He wanted to drink immediately, but Karath's words echoed in his mind. "Water is earned. Serve, or we feast." He waited, watching for movement. The pool was peaceful. No creatures, no traps. He cupped his hands, feeling the cool liquid. Slowly, he drank, savoring every drop. This was more than survival now. It was triumph. As he rested, exhausted but alive, Karath appeared at the edge of the canyon. She looked down at him, eyes sharp but approving. "You have endured," she said. Her voice was low, like the hiss of the wind through the canyon. "You have survived where many would have died. Tomorrow, your next trial begins." Evan nodded, too tired to speak. He had learned the first lesson. Endurance and courage were as important as strength. The night came, and the cavern grew quiet. Evan lay near the water pool, thinking about what had happened. He had faced creatures, hunger, thirst, and his own weakness. He had endured. He had survived, and for the first time in days, he felt hope. He might yet become worthy of the warrior's respect. As he drifted into a shallow sleep, he heard faint whispers echoing through the cavern. It was the language of the Ravkari, soft hisses and clicks. He did not understand the words, but he felt their meaning. They were watching him, testing him, measuring him. He closed his eyes, feeling a small spark of determination. He would not fail. He would survive. He would endure. When dawn came, he woke to the same warriors observing him. Karath approached and held out a hand. "You have earned the water today," she said. "You have shown will. Tomorrow, you will learn to fight, to defend, to become part of this tribe." Evan accepted the gesture, feeling a mix of fear and pride. He was still weak, still human. But now, he had begun to prove himself. He drank once more from the pool, savoring the cool liquid. Each swallow reminded him of the harsh desert, of his struggle, and of the challenges ahead. He had survived the first day. He had endured the trials. He was not yet one of them, but he would be. He had no choice. To live here, to drink freely, to be part of this alien world, he had to continue. As he looked around at the glowing stones, at the towering walls, and at the quiet watchers, he felt a strange bond forming. He was alone. Yes, but not entirely. The warriors were part of his world now, whether he liked it or not, and he was learning. Slowly, painfully, he was learning. Evan clenched his fists and stood tall. Though exhaustion weighed him down, he would endure. He would fight. He would survive. The warriors had tested him today, but he had passed. Tomorrow would bring more trials, but he was ready to face them. Water was earned, and he had begun to earn it. "Serve, or we feast." The words echoed in his mind. Stronger than ever, he would serve, and he would survive. Evan woke to the dim light of the cavern. The air smelled of stone and wet earth. He stretched, his muscles sore from the trials of the previous day. The warriors were already moving around him, their scaled bodies glinting faintly in the glow of the stones. Karath stood nearby, her eyes sharp and watchful. "Today, you learn to fight," she said. Her voice was low, soft, but carried the weight of command. Evan swallowed hard. He had no weapons. He had never fought like this before. But he knew he had to try. He nodded, his throat dry. Karath motioned to a small training area further into the cavern. Rocks and wooden poles were set up, and some of the younger warriors were already practicing maneuvers. Evan followed carefully. His feet stumbled over uneven ground, and he had to hold his arms out to keep balance. Karath watched silently, while Leneth walked beside him, offering small gestures of guidance. Evan felt both nervous and determined. He had survived the desert, endured hunger and thirst, and now he had to survive this. Karath handed him a simple wooden staff. It was light, but sturdy. Evan held it awkwardly. "Defense first," Karath said. "Learn to block, learn to strike. We do not waste strength without purpose." She demonstrated a simple swing, moving with grace and precision. Evan tried to copy her movements. He stumbled, his staff clattering against the stone floor. The warriors around him hissed softly, observing, but not laughing. He practiced for hours, sweat dripping from his brow. His muscles ached, his throat burned, and his hands were raw from gripping the staff. Yet he persisted. Karath nodded occasionally, approving of small improvements. Leneth stayed nearby, adjusting his stance, showing him how to move with balance. Evan began to feel a strange rhythm. He could block, he could strike. He was still weak, but he was learning. Later, Karath introduced another trial. Evan had to face one of the younger warriors in a controlled spar. The warrior, tall and muscular, approached with a wooden staff of his own. Evan's heart raced. He remembered the desert, the thirst, the hunger, the creatures he had survived. He gripped his staff tighter. This was different, but he could not fail. The spar began. The warrior struck first, fast and strong. Evan blocked, then swung awkwardly. The warrior moved easily, evading his attacks. Evan stumbled several times, almost losing his balance. He wanted to give up, but he remembered Karath's words. Water is earned. Serve, or we feast. He forced himself to focus. He blocked the next strike, then pushed forward with a small, careful swing. It grazed the warrior's arm. The warrior hissed, but did not strike again. Karath observed silently, her eyes calculating. She wanted to see how he adapted. Evan realized he could not overpower the warrior. He had to use his mind, not just his strength. Ender. He feigned a strike, then shifted his weight and blocked a counterattack. The warrior lunged again, but Evan anticipated it, stepping aside and pushing the staff toward the warrior's side. It was not a perfect strike, but it showed understanding. The spar ended. Karath nodded once. You learn quickly. You are not strong like us, but your mind moves with speed. That is strength in itself. Evan exhaled, relief washing over him. He had survived another challenge, not with power, but with determination and thought. After the spar, Karath led him to a higher part of the cavern. The walls opened to a natural plateau overlooking the inner canyon. Below, a simulation of combat was set. Small drones, mechanical and harmless, moved as enemies. Evan's next task was to strategize, to defend a position and protect a small pool of water. Evan observed the drones. He noticed their patterns, how they moved, when they paused, and where they struck. He positioned small rocks and sticks to slow their movement, creating a simple trap. When the drones approached, he moved carefully, guiding them toward the obstacles. It was exhausting, but he succeeded. The water remained safe. Karath observed him from above, her eyes sharp, a faint approval in her gaze. Later, Evan joined a group of warriors for another exercise. They moved through a narrow canyon within the cavern, simulating an ambush. Evan had to use both his mind and body. He coordinated with the warriors, pointing out blind spots, leading them safely past dangers. The warriors were impressed. They hissed and clicked quietly to each other, acknowledging his cleverness. During a short rest, Linath approached him. You think like a human, she said softly. Not like a Ravkari. That is why you survive. Evan nodded. He understood. Humans endured through thought and courage, not just strength. He realized this was his advantage here. He could not match them in raw power, but he could match them in ingenuity. As the day wore on, Evan faced another challenge. Karath led him to a section of the cavern, filled with rocky ledges and pools of water. Some poisoned, some safe. His task was to retrieve water while avoiding dangers. He studied the environment, memorized safe paths, and moved carefully. Several times he slipped, but he caught himself just in time. He collected enough safe water to fill a small container. It was difficult, exhausting, and dangerous. Yet he succeeded. Karath's eyes glinted with approval. At dusk, the warriors gathered. Evan stood before Karath, tired, sore, but alive. She spoke in her low, commanding voice. Today, you have learned more than many do in a lifetime. You have endured hunger, thirst, fear, and combat. You have survived where others would fail. Tomorrow, you will learn to fight in the wild, outside the safety of the cavern. There, you will truly earn your place. Evan nodded, swallowing hard. His body ached, but he felt a strange pride. He was human, small, weak, but he had survived. He had endured, and the warriors, once terrifying, now acknowledged him. He was not one of them yet, but he had begun to become part of their world. That night, Evan lay near the pool of water he had protected earlier. He drank carefully, savoring each drop. He thought of the desert above, of the long walk, the sun burning his skin, and the thirst that had almost killed him. He had endured that too. He had survived the warriors' trials, learned their ways, and proven that humans could endure through courage and thought. As he drifted into sleep, he heard whispers again, soft hisses and clicks from the warriors. This time, they were not just testing him. There was curiosity in their tone, a faint recognition. Evan smiled faintly. He was still alive. He was still learning. He was still human. And humans endured. The next day would bring harsher trials, fights in the wild, and tests of strength and cunning. But Evan was ready. He had survived hunger, thirst, and combat training. He had survived the desert and the cavern. He had learned that to live here, he must combine courage, thought, and endurance. The warriors would respect him if he continued, and he would continue. He clenched his fists, feeling the strength returning to his body. The pain, the fear, and the exhaustion had not broken him. They had made him stronger. Karath, Lenath, and the other warriors would see that. Evan took a deep breath, letting the cool air of the cavern fill his lungs. He would survive the next challenge. He would fight. He would learn. He would endure. Water was earned, and he was learning the price. Serve or we feast. The words echoed in his mind, guiding him, strengthening him, reminding him of what he had already overcome and what he must still endure. The cavern was quiet, but Evan felt the presence of the warriors around him. He was not alone. He had allies, even if they were alien, fierce, and terrifying. He had a place here, though it was earned, not given. He closed his eyes, exhausted, but alive. He had faced hunger, thirst, and combat. He had faced fear and danger, and he had survived. The next trial would come, but Evan was ready. Humans endured, and Evan was human.